to It's All Her, the podcast. I'm Jordy Lucas. I'm the founder and editor of itsallher.com. I was an actress in a previous life and I'm a mum to a toddler. I've got a lot going on and I have a passion for helping women live simpler, better lives. This week on the site, our resident interior designer shares some top tips on how to freshen up your home during spring, and we talk about destigmatizing women's sexual health. Now, speaking of destigmatizing health issues, mental health is something that I am extremely passionate about sharing and demystifying. I share a lot about my postpartum anxiety on my personal Instagram, and it's true, like the more we talk about things, the more we realize how common things are. And obviously I don't enjoy other people's suffering, but there is a comfort in knowing you're not alone. So SAS Australia is on at the moment, and I haven't watched a whole heap. The challenges, some of them make me feel so uncomfortable, and also the past actions of a few of the male contestants I just find unforgivable, and I can't for the life of me work out why they still have a public profile. But anyway, Bonnie Anderson, who's a singer and actress, she was on Neighbours. She made the call to leave the show this week. She basically came to the conclusion that the conditions and what was going on the show, she was feeling really anxious and awful, and she decided it was too much and she wanted to leave. I really admire the fact that she recognized that her mental health was suffering and actually had the guts to remove herself from that situation. I know that there will be plenty of people listening to this, myself included, who have felt stuck in situations, whether that be work, a relationship, a friendship that has a negative impact on your mental health, and you feel stuck and you don't have the guts to leave. And here we have this young girl who is on national television who is really struggling, and she's actually had the courage to walk away. Anyway, then it cuts back to Bonnie sort of telling the contestants how she's feeling, and that she thinks that she wants to go home. And Yana Pittman, one of the other contestants, sort of says that, you know, the way that Bonnie's feeling should just be an extra challenge for her to get through. And while I can see where she's coming from, I think there's such a fine line between resilience and just completely ignoring your mental health. Where do we draw the line between being tough and brave but coming out a complete shell of a human? And then I think about it as a mother. I never want my daughter to stick it out or push through at the cost of her mental health. If she's in a situation that is impacting her negatively, I want her to get the hell out of there. I think it really shows the difference and the shift between the generations of how we view mental health and how perhaps younger generations prioritize it over being seen as tough, which I think is really good. I think it's a positive thing. So good job, Bonnie Anderson. Now to this week's guest. Justine Schofield competed on the very first season of Masterchef Australia and has since gone on to author 4 cookbooks and host her very own cooking show, Everyday Gourmet, on Channel 10. I caught up with Justine to talk about her experience on the show, how to make your life easier in the kitchen, and her predictions for the upcoming season of Celebrity Masterchef. Here's my chat with Justine Schofield. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. Very excited to hear all about your life and career. Now, you're in Brisbane, so tell me a bit about how freedom is up there.
I know, we're pretty lucky actually, and kind of feeling for majority of my friends are in Melbourne and in Sydney, so it's been pretty tough to sort of I'm obviously enjoying it, but missing them and feeling for them so much because it's just totally relentless, particularly everyone in Melbourne. It just feels like the last year they've been in lockdown. But yeah, no, up here, I mean, it is lovely. The weather's so warm, and we're really not taking it for granted to be able to roam around and just sitting in a restaurant. I really appreciate it, or just having a drink at a bar. It's sort of something that you just usually wouldn't think about, but now we're like, oh, how good is this? We're very lucky.
Yeah. Has it affected your work in terms of not being able to travel to Melbourne or Sydney? Do you travel much for your work?
Absolutely. So between February and July, I work in Melbourne. So I live in Melbourne for that.
Okay.
I'm from Sydney and my partner's up in Brisbane. So I sort of usually do the round. So, you know, go from one state to the other quite a lot. And luckily enough, most of my work is flexible where I need to be. In regards to a lot of the food demonstrations and appearances that were planned for this year, that totally got toppled over, which is so sad for the industry because, you know, those events brings community together. Food brings community together. So people that naturally do what I do for a living, we miss it. We miss the interaction with people and showing them what we're cooking and what we're doing. So, you know, it's for now. It's not forever, and hopefully we'll be out of this soon. Hopefully, so we can get back to all the joys of mingling, really.
I know. So, I mean, you sort of burst onto the scene from MasterChef, but can you tell me a bit about life prior to MasterChef? What were you doing for work? What did your life look like?
Gee, MasterChef was a long time ago. I've got to remember, I think I was 22, 23.
A baby.
So a young pup. And I was actually selling security cameras. And I know, I started off doing a business degree specializing in tourism because I like most people out there, I absolutely love traveling and learning about new cultures. So it was something that I really wanted to get into. Couldn't get into any jobs, really. I didn't want to be you know, working at a travel agency. So I kind of like, I studied that, but was a bit lost after I came out of uni, and then just got a sales job because it seemed to be the easiest thing to make a quick buck so I could go and travel. And got into that and was selling audio conferencing to start with way back in the day there. It was a thing. But it wasn't free. You'd have to pay for it. And then started to sell security cameras. And I didn't sell many at all. If I could sell some tomatoes, I probably would have sold a bucket load of them. But selling security cameras was not my thing at all. And that was a year. And then after that, the company, they made me redundant amongst majority. I think they kept 10%. They really went down to a scale, and then they're not around anymore. But it all happened. This is like one of those things that you just go, what a magic moment. Everything just sort of happens for a reason, and it came together. So as I was being made redundant, I was going to the office to talk to my boss to say, listen, I'm going to quit because I want to try it for this cooking show, and then if I don't get it, which probably won't, I want to travel, and I'm sick of sitting at a desk. So as I was walking in, he was, I've got something to tell you, you've been made redundant. I was like, you beaut. So I get a little package.
You pay out.
And I get to go and, you know, have the world is my oyster, really. I was allowed to go out there and try for this cooking show that was coming to Australia that no one really heard of. And I really didn't, I was just doing it because a friend kind of forced me into it. But then was more focused on how exciting. I'm packing my bags. Where am I going to do a stage in France? Because I wanted to go to France and learn how to cook. You know, that's my heritage. So it was something that was quite important. And that's really the only thing I love to do.
What are some of your earliest memories of food and cooking?
Yeah, I guess from an early age, I'm talking when you remember things, I guess. When's that? When you're like 4 or 5? And mum, food's very, with that French heritage, food is not just, dinner, we've got to eat dinner. It was never ever like that. It was very important that we all sit at the table, whether there's one person or 10 people, and eating well. Not eating well as in eat some spinach leaves and quinoa. It's eating well. You know, lots of butter and cream, but in moderation. And she would cook so well, and I just would love the idea that you should have a few raw ingredients and make something so delicious. You know, she would work so hard in the day wherever she was. You know, she was in sales too, actually, and would come home and still cook dinner, or Dad would, because he was a shift worker. So it was very important of the whole idea, the whole pleasure of eating. It's not eat to just sustain yourself. Eat for the pleasure of it. You know, at breakfast, tonight maybe, let's make this, or let's make that, or I saw some great fish the other day. I'm going to go get that fish. So it was always very important, and I was always sort of drawn to the kitchen to see how she would cook things. And my dad too. He was, my dad was not a great cook, but he learned very well from my mother over the years. And my maternal grandmother was an exceptional cook too. As a kid, always, big memories of getting on a plane, being sent over by myself as, a 8, 9, 10-year-old for my school
Wow.
holidays, and would go. My grandmother would meet me at the airport in Paris, and I would spend the 4
Incredible.
weeks over there, and it was quite big for a kid to do that. And I'm sure, I guess maybe when I would start doing that, maybe there were some tears and be a bit homesick, but in
Yeah.
general, it was kind of like an extension of my mother.
Yeah.
So it was, after getting over the jet lag, I was just in heaven.
Loving
And
it.
I had my little friends from the village that I would see every year when I'd go over there. And of
Yeah.
course, we'd go sometimes with mum and dad, but there'd be a few occasions where they had to work and they had to deal with us. What are they going to do 6-week school holidays with the kids?
Yeah.
And they would send me and my brother or just myself over there. And it was I just remember really young, sitting at the back and, after going to the markets with my grandmother, and she'd pick some pigeons up. Not, not the ones off the street.
Feral pigeons.
Delicious pigeons, which we call squab here.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
called squab. So if you go to a fancy restaurant, you see squab, it's a pigeon. Really.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And she would sit at the back and pluck, and I would sit there and pluck one. I'd be watching how she would do it, and I'd find that so I just wasn't like, oh, yucky, as young girls would probably find it. I was like, wow, and then what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
Put it in the pot with peas. Oh, splash of white wine. Oh, we're going to cook that, a little bit of butter. And it was just yummy, delicious.
Yeah.
With my little brother, on the other hand, we'd tell him it's chicken and he'd eat it, and then we'd tell him it's pigeon afterwards. And But I always found it quite fascinating, and always very hungry to learn. Yeah, I just love the whole activity of sitting down and eating, whether it's at a restaurant or a picnic, or I just love eating because
and
of
sharing that with people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the audition process.
Yeah, so the audition process was actually quite intense, and it was the first Masterchef in Australia, so no one knew what they were doing. From top Channel 10 all the way down, it was a brand new journey for everyone. Because there was, and my friend got me onto the show because she was like, oh, I didn't have Foxtel growing up, but she did. And she saw this show, Masterchef, which was very cook. If you cook well, you stay. If you don't, you're out. So it was not about personality. It wasn't about the bitchiness of reality TV. It wasn't any of that. And because I obviously didn't want to go on TV, but she's like, just try it out, because if you want to change your career, maybe this is going to help you. And it was at that path in my life. So I was like, yeah, okay, might as well. I'm just been made redundant. I've got nothing else to do. So it was a whole process of filling out a lot of paperwork, just online, of your food journey, what you love about food. You obviously couldn't have worked in the industry before, so that was a prerequisite. You had to just sort of be that amateur cook. And I actually just loved writing about it. It was the first time I actually poured my heart out on paper and gone, this is really, it was a moment where I was like, this is the only thing that I'm quite passionate about is food. So I think it was 10 pages of everything from, the questions that you're asking me to, what's your favorite breakfast, to do you know how to cut an onion? So all of this stuff. And then it was months later that I got a call up, and we had to do the first audition, which was hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people lining up. We lined up all day. And everyone had to have a little esky, and we had to prepare a cold dish. So when it was your turn, so it was like, I think 20 people at a time along a table, and they go, all right, go, you've got 10 minutes to arrange. And then these poor people who weren't the judges back then, but they were, professional chefs, would come around and taste. So imagine all the dishes they'd have to taste in each state. Yeah, and they tasted, and then they went, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So not even, they don't want to ask about you, they don't want to talk to you. They were tasting to see if you actually know flavor combinations.
That's brutal as well.
Brutal. I was like, I got through. Well, I'm like, lucky I got through, because I've been waiting outside for 6 hours. That's all I was worried about. I'm like, God. There were so many times I was just going to walk away. I'm like, stuff this. I'm not going to stand here in the sun for 6 hours. But thank God I did. And then the next one was the hot challenge, where we had to actually cook a hot dish for the actual judges. And the chefs too, because again, there was still quite a lot of people. Got through that. And then after that, it was top 50, which was, we were put in a hotel for a week and had to do an intense cook-off with all these people for them to find top, I think we were top 21. We had 21 people all up. So it was a process over the months, and then it was going into this amazing, beautiful house with 21 crazy, crazy people.
Yeah.
People you would never cross paths with, you would never be
In
friends
real life,
with.
yeah.
And then now they're like friends for life, obviously,
Yeah.
because we went through a unique experience together. Yeah,
And
particularly
the show has like endured the stat, like it's stood the test of time. Do you think that that maybe is because it is really just a feel good show? There isn't any drama and it's such an escape for people.
Sure, it is. It's one of those, when you put all these strangers together, you're going to get fights, you're going to get,
Yeah.
um, some juicy content, which they did.
Mm.
They filmed it all,
Yeah.
stayed well away from all that stuff. But naturally you do, and you don't know there's a camera watching you where there's a disagreement and whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really scared because all of us didn't sign up for that. We didn't want
Yeah.
to do a TV show. We just wanted to change our career. We just wanted to cook well and
Yeah.
progress. And I think when we saw the first episode and
Mm.
we just saw the talent and the skill behind it, we
Yeah.
didn't want to know about, all the soft, cushy stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't show that. We were like, wow, this show's so different to what we've seen on TV. Thank
Yeah.
God it's not another one of those shows. And we
Mm.
knew straight then and there, like, okay, this could be good. Or, because we didn't know we were cut off from the world, or it could be boring for people.
Yeah.
And it worked the other way, because not only mum and dad could watch it, but mum, dad, and the kids could watch it too and talk about it the next day. And, that girl, she cooked that Persian dish. Oh, my great grandmother, she would do, so it was memory, and there was something to relate, because we all know how to cook a certain way. Even if you're a terrible cook, you know how to cook. You know how to boil water over the canteens, if it's that simple.
Yeah.
But it was something that people could relate to, and I think the skill behind it was a skill-based show. So it wasn't just about sitting in a room and talking rubbish. It was, you want to know how to cook this, well, you're going to have to get better and better. And if you don't cook well, unfortunately, it's time for you to go. So it was an amazing game.
Yeah.
It was a skill-based game. And I think that's why it's so successful to this day. Yeah.
And Celebrity Masterchef is coming out soon. There's stars like Chrissy Swan, Ian Thorpe, Rebecca Gibney. Do you have an idea of who might take out the title, or do you even have advice for anybody who might be wanting to audition for the show down the track?
Oh, look, I have been asking, because I just love this when they bring all these celebrities together.
Yeah.
Nick Rewald, is that maybe? There's a footy player in there too. I actually have spoken to Chrissy. I said, Chrissy, if you don't win this, I'm not going to be happy, because you need to win this, because I know how passionate she is with food. She loves chatting about food. She just loves cooking. So she's my favorite right now, but we'll see. And I think it's going to be a really good one. I think it's going to be very funny. And I think from what I see, they're a close-knit group now. From the experience that they've had. So I can't wait for it to start. It's going to be good. Juicy.
Very. So how soon after finishing on MasterChef did you get this opportunity to host your own cooking show? Like, was that a dream for you to present your own cooking show, or was that just something that came up and you were like, yeah, that could be great?
That's another pinch myself moment, because I was MasterChef and was like, right, I need to get into the kitchens. So I started working at Aria, just work experience, and then a few other kitchens. A friend of mine had a kitchen, so I worked with Pedro for a while to just upskill myself as much as I could. I started a catering business. So that was the first year or two after. And was very happy with, I'm so excited. This is what I want to do, and I've got to keep working. If I want a restaurant one day, I've got to learn everything about the business. And then Channel 10 asked if I wanted to do this show, and I said, oh, that's very sweet. I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, on MasterChef, we didn't look into the camera. They just followed us everywhere. Presenting, and I never wanted to get into that. And they said, oh, just give it a go, see. And I was like, I actually remember going to Matt Moran and saying, I don't know if I can do any more work experience, because they want me to do this show. I probably won't do it though, because who am I to teach people how to cook? I'm still learning how to cook. And he said, and I remember it was Matty Moran that made me do it. He said, this is your only opportunity. If someone offers you a cooking show, you go and take it.
Yeah, you take it.
It won't come again. It won't come again. It's an opportunity that you need to take and just give it your all. And if it doesn't work, he goes, there'll still be a spot in my kitchen for you to scrub the potatoes and make the mash. And I'm like, oh, I love doing that. So, okay, great. I can come back. And yeah, then I tried out, and I think there was just a few of us.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the first season, we did only 60 episodes the first season, and I was like, okay, well, that was fun, but not for me, because it's really hard to talk into the barrel of the camera
Yeah.
and make a little joke or sort of keep everyone interested. So
Yeah.
it was really, really hard to do the first year.
Yeah. Because people train for years to present
Yeah. And I
to
remember
camera.
yeah. And I think the second season, when they asked me to come back, I said, oh, look, did you not see the first season? I was terrible. And I'm like, if I come back, I want to go get some media training. And they're like, nah, you can if you want. I think they're just a bit of a waste of time to do that. You just need to relax and be yourself. Yeah. And I hate it. I'm like, stop telling me to be myself, because I can't. If I have to talk and chop and look into the camera, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And it's only now, dare I say, it sounds pretty bad, but it's only now, 10, 11 years later, that I'm kind of getting that, where you really just need to tell whatever you're cooking, even if it's just, poached eggs, say it and explain it the way you want someone to explain it to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's work, because I think sometimes when chefs do it, God bless them, they're like my superheroes.
Yeah.
They want to skim over the stuff because they know it so well, and they just assume people know that. And what I have discovered after having my own show, Everyday Gourmet, for 11 years.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's 11 years. Is that people do want to know how to cook a good steak.
Yeah, just the basics.
Roast potatoes well, how to poach eggs, how to scramble, all those basic things. I'm very happy to hero, and I'm very happy to say it over and over and over again, because I think we need to know that. And I think there's younger people too that come home from, I remember growing up with Huey's Cooking Adventure. That's the only show I watched. And he was the 4:00 slot, and I'd be taking over that position.
Yeah.
So it's quite amazing. Like, I still kind of pinch myself. I do love Everyday Gourmet, and it's like my little baby, because it's just an amazing team. They're like my second family, and I keep learning off them, and they keep learning off me. And I just love my job is to, I start writing, because there's 300 recipes I've got to find to do.
Yeah, wow.
I love the exploration of finding new things to show people. Still probably on the base of things. So you maybe get poached eggs, and instead of with hollandaise sauce, I might do a spicy tomato hollandaise sauce. So it's changing things around and learning. And I think that's one thing I miss about travel, is not going out there, because usually after the show I go and travel and learn off more people to get the ideas to bring home. So I'll just do it in other ways, I guess.
Yeah. What has most surprised you about having a public profile?
I was actually quite nervous about it, because I never wanted to be in the public at all.
Yeah.
I'm quite far from it. I shied off it a lot. And I am quite a private person, so quite much on me. But I hope not. And I like that, because I just want people to know me for my food. And of course, I'm happy to show a little bit of myself, of course. Like, that's but I am quite private. So I was very nervous that there'd be quite a lot of backlash and nastiness. And I was surprised that it's actually been, touch wood, quite the opposite. I love when people come up to me on the street, hey, g'day, Jess. Oh, thank you so much. So even last night, someone said, I never knew that I could cure salmon with sugar and salt, and then you put blueberries in it.
Yeah, wow.
Amazing. Yeah. And they cooked it for their family. And for me, it's like, I just skip away going, this is so cool. Because I just love that people are watching and learning and actually the recipes. It's just such a buzz. You can't get better than that, really. Yeah. So I do like the positivity that's come through it, and the power of positivity too, that that you present and people give back to you has been quite nice. And it's also because being in the public, you can actually, express things that you do love, work with brands you adore and been wanting to work with for ages, and also doing, different charity jobs. And so it's been great to meet new people too, because it's not just a job where you go to work and you see the same people all the time. It's different for me every time. So
Yeah.
I do count my blessings for that.
Yeah. And you've also released a book, The Slow Cook.
Yes.
So what inspired that book, and do you have maybe a favorite recipe that's like a go-to for you from that book?
Well, so this is my fourth book, and I think the first one was all about heritage and a lot of recipes that I grew up on and things that I absolutely love and story behind that. The second one was really, really popular because it was, again, just cutting back and simpler. Then there was the weeknight book, which was really simple, 20 minutes cook. There's some that are a bit longer.
Yeah.
And then this one was something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Slow cooking. I love anything in sauce or meat that's been pulled apart or slow veggies. I just adore. And this book came out for winter, so we're getting out of winter, but it's still one of those books that you can dust off every winter.
Yeah.
And there's recipes that you want to do over and over again. And I think a lot of people have a slow cooker.
Yeah,
They don't have a slow cooker. They've obviously got a stovetop and an oven and an heavy base casserole. So I wanted to make a book where you could I wanted to demonstrate to people that you could slow cook in a slow cooker, or you could do it on the stovetop or in the oven. So there's no way that you can't do this recipe. And I just love the idea of the cooler months. I personally, like the majority of people, eat more in winter and potter around in the kitchen more too, because you've got time you're not outdoors as much, you're inside, and you do want to sort of play around in the kitchen with different things. So, and again, in the French cooking that I know, there's a lot of those winter dishes and heavier dishes in the winter time. So I had a big repertoire of those that I wanted to incorporate. And you will find gorgeous things in there, like beef bourguignon. So it's beef with red wine with mushrooms. I just love it, with creamy mashed potatoes. That's probably one of my favorites. And then, beef, all those secondary cuts that we sort of sometimes forget about. Oxtail, there's a beautiful oxtail ragu in there, and beef cheek chili con carne, which is just gorgeous. That's probably one of my favorites too, where it's all about big batch cooking. Saving a couple of nights, the rest goes in the freezer. 2 months later, defrost it, and it's probably even better. And that's what I like about slow cooking. It's efficient cooking.
Yeah, definitely. So we're all about making life simpler and better for women. How do you keep your life simple in the kitchen? What are some tips? I mean, batch cooking for me as a mum is a lifesaver. Do you have any other tips and tricks that maybe we can implement to make life even more enjoyable in the kitchen as well? Because I love cooking, but sometimes it is stressful when you've got like the strains of everyday life.
Yeah, and I don't have kids, so I don't know how that feels. So it's very hard for me to be like, oh, just do this, do this. And my sister-in-law, my brother, have got triplets,
and they're
3, and they're like, that's all great for you to say that, Just, but you try work around these children. So it's actually, I do learn a lot off them to see how I could cut corners in the kitchen to make it easy for them. And for me, the kitchen, it shouldn't be seen as and it goes back to where we just started talking about, food and why I love it so much. It should be a joy. And if you see it as a joy as opposed to a chore first up, before you get your foot into the kitchen, you'll probably get more out of your kitchen. And for me, it's all about planning, even if it's just for yourself cooking or you're cooking for a whole family. There's a term in French called mise en place, or in cooking world, mise en place is to put things in place.
Yeah.
Everything from a stir fry, before you even start getting it hot, it's chopping everything, having everything prepared.
Yeah.
And by having everything prepared, you can really attack it and cook more efficiently. I'm massive into clean as you go because it's less stressful. It doesn't seem like it. It's like, we'll just dump it all there and we'll just deal with it later. If you cook and clean as you go, you get into a rhythm, and I call it the dance. And by doing the dance in the kitchen, you cook better, you cook well, and always cook something that, not always, but I always find if I'm going to do a bolognese, I'm not just going to cook it for that night. I'm going to make sure I'm making a big batch, because let's face it, things that freeze well, you want to make sure you cook it, a double whammy of it for sure. And I'm also a big believer in, I hate waste. And I think to keep things simpler is sometimes, what are we going to have for dinner? it's probably looking at you in front of you. Open the pantry. You've got a big bag of polenta you haven't touched for, 6 months to a year. Well, look up recipes about polenta and use it up first before you go and buy more stuff. And I'm doing that personally now, and I'm finding it a little bit more relaxing in the kitchen to know that there's just stuff that we just waste that sit there for so long. It's just stop for a second, have a look what you've got. And even if you can't think, just type in polenta or go in everydaygourmet.tv and type
Good plug.
different recipes, or that arborio rice or risotto rice that's sitting there, like, let's get rid of that. Tonight we're going to make risotto. So I do like to do that because I hate wastage, and once a week I go down to the crisper and see all those sad little vegetables and minestrone again, because you can freeze it. And all those veggies won't go to waste. Even a veggie tagine, all of those things. Hero the veggie, because usually it looks a bit sad, bin it. There's so many things you can do with those veg that you usually throw away.
Amazing. Justine, thank you so much for joining us this week. I've loved hearing about your career and your pick for Celebrity MasterChef, Chrissy Swan. I'll note that down. Thank you so much. It was so lovely to chat with you.
You too. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of It's All Her. If you have loved this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen, and I'll be back in your ears next week.